Hello, Ipswich. Welcome to Dialogue with Dr. Hart. This will be last of our series of television programs for this school year. I've decided to kind of bring things full circle on two important areas for us. One will be technology, which we'll talk about in a moment, to try to give the community a sense of the changes that are happening in technology and why those changes are so important. The second is on curriculum development. Curriculum is defining what we want students to know and be able to do, which is central to what we do as a school system. So we're going to talk a little bit about where we've been with curriculum development, where we are now, and what we're hoping for the future. But before we start the show, I want to take this opportunity to say to the community, thank you so much for your support in the recent override ballot question. Already, your support for the schools is changing this culture, the excitement, the enthusiasm people are bringing, especially the professionals, to their work. Because now we know over the next 5 years, and probably beyond, we're going to have the resources we need to move the district to the next level of excellence. So thank you so much for your support. Now we're going to move to technology. There has been an enormous amount of time, effort, energy, and resources devoted to technology. Today's program is going to be somewhat of a before and after picture around technology and around curriculum development. So I'd like my guests to introduce themselves, explain your role in our organization, and then I have a series of questions I'd like you folks to answer, if you would. Why don't we start, Kathy?
Sure. I'm Kathy McMahon. I'm the assistant principal of the Ipswich Middle School.
I'm Jeannie Frash, IT director of the school district.
And I'm Chris Burke, and I'm technology integration specialist for all 4 schools.
Great, thank you. Well, all of you, there's really 3 different areas that I'd like us to talk about here. And one is the infrastructure. You know, technology is important, the tools that we have, but all the things kind of behind the wall that make it work and work well are critically important if you want people to be able to rely on the technology that you're purchasing. And the second piece is, well, what are the tools that we've bought over the course of this year? And then finally, it's so what? What's the impact for kids? What's happening in classrooms that make a big difference? So why don't we start with the infrastructure? Jeannie, could you tell people a little bit about how you found the district as far as infrastructure?
Sure. So when I first got here, basically the schools were their own individual islands of equipment, hardware, software, the way they were configured. And primarily, it was donated equipment they were using. So the tech staff, very talented staff, but didn't really have the tools they needed to create a reliable system. So we first looked at how are we going to make this system work. And the first thing that it needed was all the buildings to be connected physically. So we fiber connected all the buildings. And what that allowed us to do was redesign all of the infrastructure in the entire school district, starting with all the switches, the wiring, the firewalls, and all the hardware that makes everything work. Once we got the schools fiber connected, we were able to form a centralized managed network system, and then start rolling out all the new services. We also
let me jump in for a minute. So
please.
All of what you just explained, how does that impact the user?
Okay, well, you can bring in your iPods, your iPads, your laptops, or whatever, but if you have no network system to connect to, they're not going to work. You need to be able to connect to the internet as well as other schools, as well as all the resources. And in order to do that, you have to have a system that works. You have to have an account that you can use to connect to the system, and incorporated in that is also the security feature.
One of the things I think it's a real tangible piece is that we didn't have the wireless connections, did we?
There were
Or they weren't
there was
reliable.
different wireless in
Yeah.
each school.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the ones in the elementary schools were just brought in from home. The middle and high school had the beginnings of a wireless system. However, it wasn't configured for security.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And so how has that helped? Now that we have this new system and we have
now
all
that-
of those
yeah.
hubs.
And okay, we also have a really robust, like 6 times as fast connection to the internet.
Okay, yeah.
But so now that it's one system, when you bring in a device to any of the school buildings, you're connecting to that one system and going to the internet from our really robust internet connection. And it's faster. It works.
It works, that's a big one.
Whereas
Yep.
before, it would be, you'd wheel in a cart of laptops and maybe one would connect and then
Yeah.
it would disconnect because the other would try to connect and would kick the first one off. And
Can I
on and
add
on it
something
goes.
to that?
Go ahead.
being the instructional person and the person in the classroom, it was very, very frustrating because you would have these teachers and we'd have these great lessons and we'd bring in failing and older or laptops with that would work, but they would not connect. So, or everybody would get on a connection and the kids would go to save and we'd lose a connection and the kids would lose everything. And now with the new network and the new wireless, not only is it faster, but it's reliable.
So, Chris, let's kind of continue on that vein. Maybe you could tell the community about some of the equipment that's been purchased, and what's maybe some of the differences between the equipment, and how that's different from, let's say, a year to 18 months ago. And in your position, I mean, you've been in your position for quite some time now, and how has this last year with this big investment helped change what you see in your role as an integration specialist?
Well, the inflection of technology has changed my life dramatically because we were trying our best to be current and to do current methodologies and use the technology. But we had Windows 98 machines. We had failing laptops, and we had little projectors that we could steal and borrow to share between classrooms. Now we have brand new laptops. We have I don't know how many Chromebooks, but there's at least a cart for every grade level team.
412.
412. Chromebooks, we have iPads from K to 2. We have interactive projectors within each classroom. We have reliable equipment that we can now run on a reliable network. It has changed my life drastically because teachers and students are excited about learning.
Yeah, yeah. Now let's talk. Have you discussing things? You've done a lot with professional development this year, haven't you? And so, how has the introduction of new equipment helped with the professional development, the participation, as far as teachers are concerned?
I'm a busy girl.
Yeah.
There's been a great need, felt need, intrinsic need by the teachers to learn how to use the technology. So in my role, I run after-school workshops. I work within classrooms with teachers. I work with teams and plan curriculum. And I've been running courses after school. So we just finished up our last night course on Tuesday night. So I have teachers coming in on Saturday mornings. I had at least 35, close to 38 teachers, Kathy being one of them, coming in on Thursday mornings, Saturday mornings. I had Tuesday evenings, teachers coming in. And you can see the difference in instruction because now teachers are using these interactive boards creatively to bring kids into the world. You know, it used to be flat when I was a student. You know, if you had to do a project, you got the P encyclopedia. If you were lucky, nobody else got it first.
Yeah.
Now students and teachers have access to a wealth of information and learning how to access that information, how to analyze that information, and then turn it into a product. And the products are not just straight essay products, now they're video products, they're infomercials, they're websites, they're sharing back and forth and collaborating on documents between students across schools, with their teachers. It's dynamic.
Yeah, thank you. Kathy, I mean, as a middle school administrator, you're in and out of classrooms all day long. And so I guess I'd ask the same question of you. Is 18 months ago, what did things look like, and how do you see some differences and changes and improvements now that we've made this investment?
I think we're a district of before and then after and then renewed, where 20 years ago we felt we were at the forefront of technology integration and that we were doing it well. And with the budget shortfall, all of that disappeared, and our teachers went from energized to frustrated because they knew the power of technology integration in classrooms, and they did it really well. When they were no longer able to plan like that, teachers are planners. They need to plan. That's how they structure their day. And when they were unable to rely on technology, they stopped using it.
Yeah.
So because they couldn't rely on it any longer. They needed to keep going. They needed to teach. Now we're seeing that energy coming back. We're seeing teachers who loved technology and understand that power of technology using it on a daily basis. But we're also seeing the students participating in ways that they never have before. So Jeannie and Chris have brought in Google Docs. So you see students going home and collaborating from home, and teachers logging in and seeing those collaborations happening. I've had more than one teacher exclaim, "Look at this! They're working on it right now. I can see it from home." Or he's trying to get in touch with me so I can talk. So that old expression of taking the walls off a classroom is finally happening. We're seeing it happen. We're seeing kids being able to reach out to resources and colleagues and friends and adults and get the resources they need to do amazing work.
Yeah, yeah. I see it. As I walk through classrooms and walk through schools, it's for me. It's dramatic. Over the last several days, I've been paying particular attention to the technology, and I was in the middle school the other day, and I'm guessing about 80% of the classrooms that I walked by and looked into were in some form or the other using technology, which is just fantastic. So as far as we look at next year and kind of what we're hoping, how we're going to expand the good foundation that's been built this year or over the last maybe 18 months, what are some of the things that we might be able to be looking for? As far as, infrastructure pieces or building that big support system, is there anything else that we're going to enhance?
I guess one of the amazing things to me when I first got here was how far behind the system really was from other schools in almost every way, honestly. Yeah. So all the work that we've been doing is, just the sheer volume of work that we've been doing.
I want to just stop here so the community understands. We're looking at a woman that probably put in 15-hour days since we hired her.
But it's not done yet, and we still do have a lot of work to do. But we wanted to get the system up and running as soon as possible for everyone to be able to at least start using it, which is what we've done. And now we are focusing on trying to, bring in all the rough edges from everywhere. So we've got still quite a number of really old desktops and old computers, and there's still some old laptop carts with old laptops out there. And so we're trying to, collect all that, replace all that, upgrade all that.
Yeah. And I think, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say to the community, we're going to continue that investment in two significant ways. We, for the first time, have a technology budget that's part of our operational budget. And we also have gone back to the FEPI's Payne Grant Committee, who is supportive of doing some investing there. So we're going to be able to continue that work.
Yeah, the Payne Grant will help us to purchase newer equipment to replace the older, and then the budget, what our plan is to provide a strategy for sustaining the technology from now on. Right. So it's never going to go back to that, state that it was in. So, we're working really hard with, the file structures also and the account system
Yeah.
And, you know, in addition to all the equipment and
Yeah, you guys have done just
so.
Amazing.
Herculean effort there. Chris, how about you? You know, next year with the override, we've been able to add some teacher leadership positions, and so what are your thoughts on what next year might look like?
Well, I think it's really exciting. For the last, I don't know, 10 years, it's been myself. So I go in and out of every school, and it's overwhelming sometimes to try to get to every teacher. And so I'm going to have a team of folks next year, 25 people, who will meet on a monthly basis and plan professional development. So there'll be lots and lots of professional development for teachers around all the new devices and the new methodologies and teaching methodologies. So I'm very excited to have that kind of support and team to be working with next year.
Great. And Kathy, you know, you and Dave Fabrizio, do you guys have some thoughts on what might be next, or what your focal areas might be as administrators for next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think technology has gives us the power to really work on individual students and really level the playing field for many kids. So we've tried the past few years to bring differentiated instruction to the middle school, and I think that technology lends itself really well to continuing that goal, to make sure that all students are successful, that we're not letting any student fall or not be successful. So that is our goal, to make sure
Great.
technology helps us with that.
Excellent. So I want to wrap up this segment of Dialogue with Dr. Hart by, one, thanking everybody that's sitting in, as part of the guests here, because this team and an expanded team has made the difference in making this work. It was a huge undertaking. It's not that it didn't have some bumps along the way, but we very quickly ironed out those rough edges, and by this time of the year, we are really, I think, humming as far as technology is concerned. We're well positioned for where we're going to be looking at next year, and exciting stuff. So thank you all for coming and sharing your thoughts, but also the work that you do every day with teachers and students. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome back, Ipswich. This segment of the program is going to focus on curriculum development. Curriculum development is critically important to a school system because really what it's doing is defining what we want students to know and be able to do. And by putting that in a concrete document, it makes it clear to us as professionals the type of growth we want students to be making in content and in skill sets and in successful habits. So I have a team of folks from across the district here to talk a little bit about that. But before we go any further, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and share their role in the Ipswich Public Schools.
Hi, I'm Alan LaRoche. I teach, I'm currently a 7th grade math teacher, and I do sit on the Compass Committee and help support the curriculum work there.
My name is Alyssa Brand, and I'm a special education teacher at Doyon, and I'm also on the Compass Committee.
And my name is Colleen Werner, and I'm the department head of math at the high school, and I'm also on the Compass Committee.
Great. So we're going to talk again, similar to what we did with technology, to try to paint the before and after picture of where we are with curriculum. 2 years ago when I came to the district, a lot of people had some concerns about curriculum. There wasn't central office support. There was curriculum work happening, but it didn't seem to be supported at the level that people, especially teachers, were comfortable with. So we've tried hard to put together a system that not only will support people in in curriculum development this year, but build a system that will have curriculum development embedded in our regular practice. So it's a live, they become live documents that are constantly being adjusted to make sure that they're accomplishing what we want them to accomplish. So Colleen, maybe you could help us a little bit with the state of curriculum development a few years ago.
Sure. So When I first started teaching at Ipswich, and even up until a couple years ago, I would describe, maybe using the same word that Jeannie Fresh used earlier to describe the technology situation, and that's like islands, each school being its own island, and to some extent even at the high school, maybe each department being its own island. Not really a lot of focus on the connections among disciplines or the connections among grades. And so there's a lot of talented teachers in our district, and there is a lot of great curriculum work happening, but it's maybe not as coordinated as it could be because people are developing it in isolation and not communicating with each other as well as you would hope. So I would say that the state of affairs really was one of like pockets of excellence, but not a lot of connection among buildings, among departments.
Great, thank you, thank you. And so we've been doing now close to 2 years of work on building this, what we call our Compass team. Alyssa, could you tell us a little bit about that work?
Sure. So we've been meeting monthly, about 4 to 5 teachers from each school, and we meet with a facilitator to help us kind of understand how to facilitate curriculum development at our schools. And to kind of create continuity about how that happens and how we look at curriculum, how we look at standards to align the curriculum, and then also how to embed the successful habits of mind throughout the district for students K through 12.
Great. So now, I mean, you've been participating for a while now. You know, what are some of the things that you know now that you may not have known before you started this work as a Compass facilitator?
Mm-hmm. So I think one thing we've worked on is how to use protocols to facilitate curriculum development and meetings at your school. So meeting with teams of teachers and interacting in a structured way so everyone has a voice and so that you can build consensus towards a goal, whether that be curriculum or some other problem the team is facing.
Yeah, a critically important piece because we have bright, talented people throughout the district, but it's very challenging to have a focused conversation around challenging content and work and allow everybody to have their voice and their voice heard. So, and that's an important piece because that type of facilitated conversation makes sure that you get all of people's good thinking on the table, and that helps people move forward with different work. Absolutely, thank you. Now, I think I'll leave that there for now. Alan, a little bit about kind of where you think this work is heading for us as a district.
Well, I think we've done great work within the past couple of years of bringing the different schools together and starting the discussion of embedding the successful habits of mind within our curriculum. We have continued the use of understanding by design work to help develop our units and lessons in our classroom.
Could you tell us just a little bit, because the audience may not know what understanding by design is all about. What's the process? Why is it important?
Well, the understanding by design gives us a format to help the teachers address their curriculum with the students and the skills. Yeah. So it gets them working backwards, thinking about the end result. Gotcha. What we want our kids to know and be able to do first, and then help us develop our lessons and units with that in mind.
Yeah. That's a fairly significant shift in education relatively recently, because we'd put together a series of really great activities that we were hoping would kind of come to a positive end. But this now helps us really be clear about what we want kids to know and be able to do. And that's, we have our Common Core, which is really some challenging content. And then we have the habits of mind, which, things like, do you think really well? Do you communicate well? Can you collaborate? Are you persistent, and will you persevere? And do you know how to manage yourself as a learner? So all of those pieces are critically important. But what you're saying is we want to make sure that we've defined that well, and that leads into the assessment piece of some of this work. I don't know if you might be able to speak to that a little bit, Alan.
Right. So I think the assessment piece is that's the end in mind when you're looking to assess a student on a unit or a lesson. is you always want to be thinking, well, what do I want them to know and be able to do before I create that assessment? Which is then gonna, once I know what I'm gonna assess those students on, I then can create that engine, that unit, those lessons to get them there.
Right.
And I think that's an important piece. And as a district, we've been using Understanding by Design for a number of years. So this hasn't been something we've just started within the last couple of years. But it's just, I think everybody's now, more and more people are jumping on board and using Understanding by Design to help create curriculum.
Well, tell me a little bit more about, now that we have 4, 5, 6 people from each building coming together monthly, what's been the impact of that around, just understanding where different buildings are and understanding or working together to a common goal? Can you speak to that a little bit?
So I think in general the word continuity comes to mind. Yeah. So continuity between specifically the elementary schools with curriculum. So each teacher in the district has created a curriculum unit this year in teams. And at the elementary level, we've done that across Doyon and Winthrop together. Mm-hmm. So that's been key in terms of helping students have the same experience curriculum-wise at each school so that the outcome at middle school is consistent.
Yeah, great.
And I think it addresses also some of the work that we've done has really addressed my initial thoughts about the disconnection and the lack of connection between the buildings. I feel like our work has really addressed that in some way, because first of all, if we have habits of mind that we all agree K-12 are important, that's a dialogue right there. That's something that the students will hear those words, the students know what we value, and that we all value the same thing, K-12. That brings us together in terms of like all having the same idea of what's important. Yeah. And I think also the Compass work brings us together in a way that eventually will help us develop a vertical alignment of curriculum, so that if every teacher's not going to be in the same room, but if we develop these ways of working together, we develop the infrastructure for being able to work together as professionals, we're going to have an easier time developing a very coordinated, articulated experience for students K-12.
Yeah, great. A couple of minutes ago, Alyssa, you had kind of made reference to these sharing of units. I believe on June 10th and on June 11th. The June 10th, I think it's the elementary schools, if I remember correctly, will be coming together and sharing this unit. What we ask teachers to do is to work together, or work in isolation. I think it was mostly together, on a unit that takes the Massachusetts Common Core, which are very rigorous content standards with our successful habits of mind, our 21st century skills, and put that, build a unit that integrates both of those pieces, and then has an assessment that's a performance assessment, which oftentimes, our assessments will be very content driven. It's, do you know the content in math or science or social studies? The performance assessment is really, can you use that information? Do you have some flexible thinking around the content that you required? So people at this point, hopefully, have substantially finished a unit that has done just that, that's integrated those pieces. At the elementary schools on the 10th, they're going to be coming together and sharing that work, and at the secondary, we'll be doing a similar process on the 11th. So maybe you could tell a little bit about that, how it's the culmination of some of the work that the Compass group has been doing all year, and maybe a little bit about why this would be important. Alyssa, do you want to start?
Sure. So on June 10th, we are meeting as an elementary school. We're going to meet together. Mm-hmm. And teachers are going to be put in triads, so groups of 3, and we are following a success analysis protocol where we're sharing our units and talking about what was successful about them and then what factors contributed to that success around curriculum. Yeah. And then analyzing how we can use those factors to push us forward in other curriculum areas.
Great. Anybody else want to jump in?
Yeah, and then we'll be doing the same thing, right, on the 11th?
On the 11th. Yeah. And our focus this year for the units has been on the successful habit of mine of communication. Has been the main focus this year, of embedding communication within our units. Not that we haven't embedded the other successful habits of mind, but communication has been our main focus this year.
Great.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about the 11th because it's going to be a time for the high school and the middle school to come together and examine their curriculum together. So that's something we've never done before. So that starts this idea of connecting amongst buildings that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, they talk about this type of work as building a culture of professional collaboration. That you know, it helps facilitate people opening their doors and seeing the benefit of sharing work. And this is a great way we started. Let's talk a little bit about the protocol itself, which is, they call it a success analysis protocol. It's a great way to start this work because you're really focusing on the results of the unit development that you really feel were impactful. And that's a good place to start, where people are, you know, you're really focusing on the positives of the work that people have done. So let's try to wrap up this part of the segment to say, well, you know, how do you think this work is impacting students? Because they're kind of the end result here, and we want this work to impact students. We're just kind of beginning this work. So maybe we could speak to maybe some of the things that are happening this year, but maybe even more importantly, what do you see as the impact in the future?
If I can jump in here.
Yes, please do. Please do.
I think the protocols and what we've been doing over the last couple of years, people at the middle school have really benefited from. If I, as a math teacher, am presenting my unit, I have people sitting in that meeting going through that protocol from language arts, social studies, science, and then maybe another math person. But we're getting perspective from not just our subject areas, but every other subject area, which people are finding very beneficial, because me as a math teacher, I can sometimes be very linear at times, and getting perspective from people that think differently than me helps the process, and really, I think, benefits the students down the road with how we present our information to them.
Oh, that's so important. And sometimes it's counterintuitive for people to think, how can a social studies teacher help me with my math lesson? But that social studies teacher is probably has similar learning styles as students who are in your class. So if their voice isn't being heard in the development process, then you know, math teachers, there's usually a lot of similarity in how you look at things and how, so not only are the different teachers there, but I think those different teachers are representative of all the different students that are in the classes. Yeah. Alyssa, you look like you were going to jump in there.
Well, I think just in general, creating that vertical and horizontal alignment is going to help students, because each grade level is going to build on what the previous grade level already started, so that we come out with students who are really ready for careers in college at the end.
Thank you. Colleen, any?
And I keep echoing the same refrain, but I feel like it's, you know, all this work is helping us all feel more connected as professionals, which is much more rewarding than working in isolation. And I think also that's going to translate to the students having a sense of connectedness about their education, that their middle school experience is connected to their high school experience. You know, what they do in math is not completely divorced from what they do in science and social studies. And I just think it's more rewarding for everyone to feel like feel that what they're learning is connected to other subjects, to the real world, you know, and that teachers feel connected to one another. And I just think it's that's the main benefit of all of this work.
Yeah. Well, thank you. As I did with the technology people, the folks here that have participated have been working on this for months and months and months. Have done a really fabulous job. You know, we're kind of building this system from scratch. 2 years ago, we brought a group of teachers together just to say, well, what should these positions look like? And so we've been building kind of the airplane as we're flying it. And I think we're ending up, that's that's a messier process, but it ends up in a place where hopefully people feel like they've had a lot of input. And that's a challenging place to be. And everybody sitting here has done a fabulous job. I really feel like the 10th and the 11th is the culmination of a couple of years of work, and that sharing is an important piece. So I want to thank all of you and the entire Compass group for your work there. Again, kind of bringing back to the financial support that the district or the community has given us. We'll have a director of teaching and learning who's a significant part of his or her position will be helping to facilitate and working directly with the Compass people who will work as a team within the district, but also will be working with their colleagues at the building level. So I'm confident that we're building a system that will allow curriculum work to be a vibrant, ongoing process in the district. So in wrapping up this segment, in two key areas and two key goals this year around technology integration and around building a system for curriculum development, with the teachers and staff here in the Ipswich Public Schools has really done exceptional work. We're building a foundation for the future, and it's a great place to be. So thank to all of you, thank you to the community, and I look forward to talking to you next year about how we continue to move in these two critical areas and other areas that are important to students. So thank you very much, and I appreciate you joining us.